ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूप गदामह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्तस्वामिन् इति नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna.
Hare
So
Krishna.
welcome you all once again. And as we know, we are discussing Bhagavad Gita and we are continuing from where we have left on this Friday. So we'll continue from chapter 2 and text number 11, isn't it? So just a recap. As of now, what happened is Arjuna, in chapter 1, you have seen how Arjuna actually got bewildered by seeing all his kinsmen, and he at the end decided not to fight. And he gave 5 reasons not to fight. He says, it's he was compassionate towards his family members, to our kinsmen, his uncle, brother, brother-in-law, and everyone over there, and acharyas. Again, and after that, he says there is no use of enjoying this kingdom even after killing my friends, isn't it? So there is no enjoyment because we want to enjoy with our kinsmen, but there are no one will be there after this fight. And then he said, we will acquire sinful reaction. So by killing this, we will be getting sinful reactions. And the fourth reason he gave that uh, even the family taxation will happen. So family lineage will be, there will be no pindadan and other thing will happen. So, and then the fifth reason he gave in chapter 2 is indecision. He says, I'm actually could not decide what to do, what not to. So at the end, in 2.7, he surrendered to Lord Sri Krishna. He says, I am your servant, soul surrendered to you. So please guide me, please instruct me what is the best for me. And then Krishna started speaking. And we elaborately discussed in a study session that what does Bhagavan means. Because the first verse says by Krishna, it doesn't say about Krishna Uvacha, he says Sri Bhagavana Uvacha. So Prabhupada mentioned very nicely that this emphasizes that Bhagavan and Krishna both are identical and this is the same personality. And we have discussed about three aspects of Bhagavan. One is Brahman realization, one is Paramatma realization, and one is Supreme Bhagavan personal realization. And the third realization, the Bhagavan realization, is the highest realization. And by understanding God as Bhagavan, we understand his Brahman realization as well as we understand the Paramatma realization too. So that's where we're discussing for thank you, Alistair, for joining. Thank you. So that's what we have discussed as of now, till 2.10. And today we'll continue from 2.11, where Krishna started giving him the knowledge, or basically he tries to uh, answer Arjuna's first question, or first his, he gave the first reason not to fight the war, and Krishna answering here in this verse. He start from here. So the verse is we discussed earlier last week, but we'll continue the discussion today from this verse again. Sri Bhagavan Uvacha Asosyan Anvasosastam Pragyavadam Bhasase Gatasuna Gatasumsha Nano Shoshanti Pandita. Lord Krishna says that you are speaking like very learned words, However, you are mourning for what is not worthy of grief. And those who are wise, those who are realized soul, they neither lament for the living nor for the dead. And it's very nicely been described by Srila Prabhupada. uh, in the Prabhupada very start, he says, the Lord at once took the position of a teacher and chastised the students, calling him indirectly, you are a fool. And you are talking like a learned man, but you do not know what, and one who is learned, who one who knows what is the body and what is soul, they does not lament for any stage of the body, neither living nor in the dead condition. Right. And in this section, I was reading the Srila Vishwanath Thakur. He says that Krishna is saying, "O Arjuna, this lamentation of yours is caused by attachment to the friends and relatives, is the cause of bewilderment. So, because he sees his kinsmen, so he got attached to everyone, and as of now, we also get attached to everything, and that this is the cause of bewilderment. And your power of discriminant arising from your concerns, starting in this verse with how can I fight against Bhishma and Drona, are the cause of lack of wisdom." So this is Krishna is saying this is a higher knowledge. So what actually the fighting is being described as Arthashastra. So the Krishna is saying it for fighting, it's maybe called as Arthashastra, that or political knowledge. And Arjuna is defying those things with Dharma Shastra. He's saying that no, higher than political, higher than in a fighting, there is higher that I should not fight with my kinsmen, and there is no point of killing my kinsmen and taking their kingdom, and there will be no enjoyment too. So that's again Dharma Shastra. But uh, even Baldev Bhushan and Vinachakra Thakur and Srila Prabhupada, they all say that there is a higher knowledge that's called as Jnana Shastra. And Krishna is defying Arjuna's compassions through Jnana Shastra. So from Dharma Shastra, there is a higher thing that's called as Jnana Shastra, or that Jnana is the knowledge of this body and the soul. Sri Baldev Bhushan, Vidyabhushan, he nicely makes a point to us, to everyone, you can say, is like he says, and there should be no lamentation because the destruction of gross body is inevitable due to their nature, and there should be no lamentation for the destruction of the subtle body since it is indestructible until liberation. So there should be no lamentation for the soul because it is devoid of six changes and is always eternal. So our this soul, we'll see it again. Krishna explain this verse again more and more detail, that the soul is always eternal, and this gross body is cannot be saved in any point time, or any by any process it cannot be saved as well. And there, and he says that Arjuna actually he lacks of the wisdom. He doesn't know the real thing. Maybe definitely he knew, but Krishna has put him in illusion so that he can give this knowledge to us. And Prabhupada explains here that as he did not happen to be very learned man, he was consequently lamenting for something which was unworthy of lamentation. And why this lamentation of Arjuna is called as unworthy? Because he's actually talking on the point of Dharma Shastra, and Krishna is going to give the higher, that is the Jnana Shastra, the knowledge of the soul and the body. And Prabhupada writes here that uh, the body is born and is destined to be vanquished today or tomorrow. Therefore, the body is not as important as the soul, and one who knows this is actually learned. And for him, there is no cause of lamentation, regardless of the condition of the material body. So, regardless of our condition, either a boy or a child or an adult or an old age, whatever it is, but the learned person, they do not uh, lament for this body, right? And then Krishna continues. Krishna has started giving his direct instructions to Arjuna. He says, "Na te evaham jatu nasham, na tvam neme janadipah, na chaivana bhavishyam sarve avamata brahma." Krishna is saying that never was there a time when I did not exist. And it is being explained that when Krishna says I, that signifies Paramatma, Lord Bhagavan, Krishna. Nor you and all other kings. This signifies nor you means Arjuna, you as Jivatma, and all other kings who are assembled here for the fighting. These are all Jivatmas. So there are two distinctions about I and you. I, Krishna says this, me, myself as Paramatma. He is always there. And also we living entity, or we Jivatmas, are also always eternal. We always existed. And Krishna saying that again, that not in the present Krishna says, in the past as well, I existed, you existed, all the kings existed. And Krishna is saying, nor in the future shall any one of us cease to be. It means we will remain in future as well, right? So how you can understand this logic? Like I existed earlier, I am existing now, I'll exist after this as well. So devotee explain this in a very nice examples as well. Let's suppose you are standing on your window, and you're watching on the road, right? Suddenly you could see that one car has come and passed from this road. So sometime before, you can imagine, sometime before you could not see the car. However, the car existed. Actually, the car is running on the road, but you could not see. Your vision is limited to maybe some 500 meter, right? But beyond that, the car was already there. He started coming out and approaching to you. Once it comes under your vision area, you could see the car. And when this car passed away from your vision area, you could not see anymore. That doesn't mean that car didn't exist earlier, nor the car will not exist after your the passing away of your vision. The car existed earlier, at the present when you saw the car, as well as it will exist after the area here crossed from your vision as well. So in this way, Krishna says that I myself and all of here, you and all the kings, they existed earlier, they are right now, and they will exist going forth as well. What does that mean? What Krishna talking about? That's the important thing. Krishna is talking about the soul, not his body, right? Prabhupada says that he actually quotes from Katha Upanishad. He says, Nityo Nityanam Chetanas Chetanam Eko Bahunam Ya Vividhati Kamam. So this all the even Upanishads everywhere it being mentioned that the supremacy of super soul and the soul. And a nice question is being made here by uh, Baldev Vidabhushan. Here he says that having establishing Arjuna's lack of wisdom through his unsuitable lamentation, the Lord of all beings, Bhagavan, he next speak about the fundamental difference between the Jiva and himself to Arjuna. So now Krishna has by establishing himself, he is going to say that Arjuna, you are lacking of this knowledge, lacking the real wisdom about the difference between the soul and the body, and Krishna is going to give the differences between Jiva and Krishna. So Krishna or Bhagavan or Paramatma, this is also called as Vibhu. Vibhu means huge, and we are Anu. So in quality, actually we are eternal. Krishna or Bhagavan is eternal as well. But when we say about quantity, it's huge difference. So you cannot say a drop of water is ocean. So even Prabhupada mentions sometimes that the scientist, they take few drops of water from the ocean and they do their experiment, and they come up that okay, this ocean water has this minerals in this proportion. But the water inside the test tube or in the tube, it cannot be called as this is ocean. So ocean is huge, but the quality remains the same. In a similar way, quality of us and Bhagavan remain the same, but when it's come to quantity, we are limited, and Krishna is huge. Krishna can do anything what he wishes, but we can't do what we wish. We are all limited. In every respect, we are limited. We are controlled in every respect, but not Krishna. Right. And then here, very, very nice point I read from Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur commentary. He says that he asks a question, even this question to all of us. He says, now, oh friend, I'll ask you a question. When you see the death of a person you love, you lament. That's fact, isn't it? Whenever we see our someone has passed away, we lament, we cry. That's for sure. However, he says, but is the object of affection while the person is in the world, the soul or the body? So actually, we are loving to whom? The question is, we are loving to whom? to the soul or to the body. The body is still lying there. The person's death has gone, but still the body is there. So actually, in reality, we are loving to the soul. Because of the soul presence in the body is active. You can walk, you can talk, you can hug, you can, all the emotions like cry, desire, and everything can goes on just because the soul is present there, isn't it? So that's the question. Vishal Chakravarti Thakur says that ask, the person has died, we are crying for whom? For the body or for the soul? Body is still there, we are crying for that spiritual spark which was present in the body, and that body was active. And Sukdev Goswami, he continues here. The Sukdev Goswami says in Srimad Bhagavatam 10th canto, he says that the soul is most dear in all living beings. So the soul is actually dear. Sarvesham eva bhutanam nripa swatmaiva ballabha. So if the soul is the object of affection, the point here he makes that if the soul is the object of affection, the soul should not be the object of lamentation. I repeat this line again. It says that if the soul is the object of affection, that we concluded from previous example, that we love to the soul. Actually, we think that we are loving to the body, but actually we love to the soul, because the soul is there. That's why we could see that charm in the body. We could see the affection. We could see the exchanges between the body because of the presence of soul. So he's saying, if the soul is the object of affection, then the soul should not be the object of lamentation. Why? Because it cannot suffer death. And we'll see in next couple of verses, Krishna establishes that a soul never dies and it remains for eternal. It's eternal. And it cannot suffer death, since both types of Atma, that is the Jivatma and Paramatma. So we are Jivatma, living entities, and Paramatma, Ishvara, Krishna, both are eternal. And in that way, we can say that we are equal with God, having the conclusion that we are equal in God in quality, not in quantity, right? And now, in this way, Krishna continues from here. And Prabhupada here, actually in this purport, if you see the verse number 12, in that purport, Prabhupada uh, write a very nice and elaborate purport. Here he defies the philosophy of Mayavadi, thinking that the person, or sometimes we in the philosophy of Mayavadi says, we are actually God. Somehow or other we have come into this illusion, but we are actually God. And uh, also a second point is, when we get liberated, I'll merge into this Brahman, and I'll merge with God, so I'll become God. So that conception is being defied by this verse. Prabhupada says that in this verse, Krishna clearly mentioned, in these two verses, 11 and 12, Krishna clearly mentioned that even after liberation, the person exists. That spark exists. So it never merges. So in the past, it existed, in present, it's there, and in future also, it will exist. Right. So I would like to know if you can read this purport. That's nicely Prabhupada mentioned that how the philosophy of Mayavadi says, and how Krishna is clearly saying that it cannot happen. So the soul and super soul, they cannot merge at any point of time. It's all individual. Individuality of Ishvara and individuality of every living entity, they always remain intact. And Prabhupada says he has confirmed his individuality in many ways, and the impersonal Brahman has been declared to be subordinate to him. So in the impersonal Brahman, what we see, that basically is subordinate to Krishna. And we'll see in chapter 13 and 14 where Krishna says that Brahmano hi pratishtaham. So in the impersonal Brahman is actually, I am the base of him, or impersonal Brahman. We'll see it going forward. And then Krishna has maintained spiritual individuality of all along. So that's how uh, the individuality of a living being and Supreme Soul or Krishna is always there. There is no merging, and we can never ever become God. We can never ever become God. What are the process we follow? we can never become God. Right? And continuing here, he says, Krishna explains that the description of God, Ishvara, and Jiva are also something unknown to common man. So Baldev Vishabhushan comments here that the description about the God, who God is, and the living entity. So what are the difference between them? What are the description of both are actually unknown to common people, common men, and because of this, they correlate distinctive contrary qualities of God and Jiva, the mutually contrary qualities of the Lord and the Jiva, greatness and smallness, the lordship and servitude can be understood only through scriptures, isn't it? So just by our whimsical thoughts and it's cannot be understood. So Krishna or Paramatma is Vibhu, is great or great, and we are Anu, very small. So great and we are small. Lord is great, we are small. Lord is Lord, and we are his servant. And we have seen this verse many a time. Jivara Swarupa hai Nitya Krishna Das. So we are, as a living entity, are actually always at all time are the servant of the Lord. Even the devotee says it's better to become the servant of the servant of the Lord. So that's how it is, and that can only be understood through scriptures, taking the help of scriptures and understanding this philosophy with the devotee. It can be understood well, right? So that's verse number 12, and in 13 verse it says, I think it's a famous verse as well. Dehino ashmin yatha dehe komaram yovanam jara tatha dehantara praptir dhiras tatra namohyati. Krishna is claiming or making him understand again that this the soul, it continuously passes in this body from boyhood to youth to old age, and the soul similarly passes this body, embodied soul continuously passes in this body from the boyhood to youth and to old age, and the soul similarly passes into another body at death. And so a sober person is not bewildered by such change. So Krishna spoke in this verse that in the body belonging to the jiva, one attains stages such as boyhood, and after boyhood is destroyed, one attains youth. So imagine the point mentioned here is that after boyhood is destroyed, one attains youth. Even science also says that every 7 years, the each particles or each tissues of the body are actually renewed, which means we have got completely new body in 7 years of time. So after boyhood is destroyed, one attains youth, and when youth is destroyed, one attains old age. In the same manner, one attains another body after death. So just as one does not lament for the destruction of the object of affection in the body in the form of boyhood and youth of the body which are related to the soul, so one should not lament for the destruction of the object of affection, that is the body, which is also related to the soul. So the point here is Krishna wanted to give the knowledge to Arjuna that the one, the for thing you are lamenting for the body, that actually is not worthy of lamenting. And Prabhupada also says here that since every living entity is an individual soul, that we established from the previous verse, that every living entity is an individual soul, and each is changing his body every moment. So every moment we are actually changing. That's why from we become from boyhood we become youth, from youth to old age. That's happening every time. And however, the spiritual spark remains the same at all stages. Even within the womb of a mother, that same spiritual spark, when the boy or the girl is born, it goes to youth to old, everything at every stages, the spiritual spark that remain always the same. So Prabhupada says the spirit soul is there and does not undergo any change. So that spiritual spark within the body is not changing. What's changing is this body, what we can see, right? And There was no cause for lamentation by Arjuna, especially on the account of death for Bhishma or Drona. So these two characters have been mentioned because he get actually more bewildered by seeing Vishnu Pitama and Dronacharya, and both are actually praiseworthy for him. And they have he one of his teacher, and one is as good as like father. So that's why Prabhupada mentioned this point that Arjuna should not lament on account of death for Vishnu Pitama or for Dronacharya, right? So that's verse 13. Again, Prabhupada mentioned the same theory of defeating this Mayavadi theory as well. That Prabhupada says that the Mayavadi theory of oneness of the spirit soul cannot be entertained on the ground that the spiritual soul cannot be cut into pieces as a fragmental portion. So such cutting into different individual soul would make the supreme uh, cleavable or changeable against the principle of the supreme souls being unchangeable. So as confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita, the fragmental portion of supreme exists eternally, that is Sanatana, and are called Shara. And that is, they have a tendency to fall down into material nature. And these fragmental portion are eternal. And so, and even after liberation, the individual souls remain the same fragmental. And we'll see in Krishna says the same again, that he is the seed giving father, and we are all his parts and partial. So we'll see those verses again as well in going forward in second half, like from chapter number 7 to 12. Krishna explained this. All right. So any questions, any thought till now before we move ahead, or any realization, any want to share something? Okay. And this verse number 13, that makes a clear distinction that the change of the body is actually natural. So see, if you can see it, without any problem, the childhood from the from teenage to the old age, the process happens gradually, right? Without any problem, it happens. That's again the mother nature. And then Krishna starts explaining over there that a person who is dhira and dhira, who is basically a sober person and who has perfect knowledge. So it says tatha dehantara praptir dhira tatra na mohyati. A sober person is not bewildered by change. Means what? A person, he has this knowledge about the material body as well as the spiritual body or spiritual spark. That's why he never lament for this. And it says that Arjuna might argue, but still I am attached to their current bodies. So Krishna says that we should not lament for this body, and this point also valid for us. We are attached to the current bodies of our relatives, our friends, and other things, right? So Arjuna may argue that I am attached to their current bodies and lament due to separation from them. That is natural, isn't it? That's quite natural. So and then for that, Krishna answers in the next verse, in 14th verse. Krishna says to tolerate. So to tolerate the pain, to tolerate the sorrow. Krishna says, Matra sparshas tu kaunteya shitoshana sukha dukkadaha agma payo nityas tam tatiksha bharata. So Krishna says, O son of Kunti, the non-permanent appearance of happiness and distress and their disappearance in due course are like the appearance and disappearance of winter and summer season. So they arise from sense perception. Ocean of Bharata, one must learn to tolerate them without being disturbed. So Krishna is saying, yes, your question is kind of valid, right? We have attachment with this body, but we have to tolerate it. So Prabhupada says, in the proper discharge of duty, one has to learn to tolerate non-permanent appearance and disappearance of happiness and distress. And according to Vedic injunction, one has to take, like, Prabhupada gives an example, like, as for the Vedic injunctions, one has to take his early bath in the morning, even during cold seasons, right, with cold water. That also, uh, the devotee, the people, they take bath, even it's very cold. And in a similar way, he says that in summer, in hot, uh, the ladies or the women, they go into the kitchen and they cook, though they were sweating, and it's quite hot, but still they need to cook because we have to eat. So they tolerate the hotness even inside the kitchen. And the people, they tolerate the coldness in the morning. In a similar way, to perform this religious principle, although he's saying to Arjuna that although one has to fight with some friends and relatives for religious principle, for religious principles, one has to fight for some friends and relatives, and one should not deviate from his prescribed duty. So that's the knowledge given, instruction given to Arjuna, that you should tolerate this because you're going to do something religious activities. It's because it's directed by Lord Krishna himself, right? So that's why Krishna says your question is valid, however you should tolerate it. And we have to do our duties. We cannot go away from our duties despite of the climatic inconveniences. Even in hot, we have to do our duties. Even in cold, we have to do our duties. And how it happens, it will pass away, as if like season, it will go away as well, right? So let's take another verse. Then Krishna, he started saying about that, the person who is not disturbed by happiness and distress and is steady in both is certainly eligible for liberation. So Krishna now said that you should tolerate. And now he is giving the reason that what happens when someone tolerates these things. He's tolerating the happiness as well as the distress. What happens? He's actually eligible for going to back to Godhead. He's eligible for liberation. There's a stage, and it's been described by Vishwanath Thakur. Says practicing tolerance with this discriminant, the experience of the sense objects will, with passage of time, not give distress at all. When a person reaches this stage where there is no distress from the object of senses, liberation of the Atma is close at hand and he is qualified for liberation. That is Amritabhya. So by being equipoised, and even in the last verses of this chapter 2, Krishna explains this more as well, the qualities of this realized soul. So that's how Krishna says we should tolerate it and we should not be disturbed by happiness and distress. And Prabhupada says anyone who is steady in his determination for the advanced stage of spiritual realization and can equally tolerate the onslaught of distress and happiness is certainly a person eligible for liberation. So uh, Krishna is instructing Arjuna that you should tolerate, and also instruction to us that we should tolerate even both the happiness and distress. That makes us the way, that makes us the path for uh, liberation. And in next verse, in 16, Krishna says, Nasato vidite bhavo na bhavo vidite satah. So those who are the seer of the truth, they have concluded that this uh, non-existent, there is no permanent existence for this body. So what the conclusion is, there is no permanent existence for this body. This body is going to die either today or tomorrow, that's for sure, and we'll get another body as well. Krishna says in going ahead. So this body for which the Arjuna was lamenting is actually has no permanent existence, and there is no cessation of existence for the soul. It means soul will remain eternally, and this body is going to die in due course of time. Just some time gap is there, but it's going to die. It's going to be, the soul is going to leave this body and take another one, maybe spiritual one or something else, but it's going to give up. So the soul will remain and the body will go away, at that's for sure. Maybe there's some time we can this hanker away for this body and the same soul, for some time, but again the soul will change it, right? So that is basically the nature of the soul, is that it will remain eternal, and the nature of this body is that it will uh, die someday. So there is no endurance of the changing body, and that body is changing every moment by the action and reactions of the different cells, even is admitted by modern medical science. Prabhupada mentions in this verse and the purport. And thus the growth and old age are taking place in this body, but the spiritual soul or spark, it exists permanently, right? uh, that is the soul that remains permanently, and this body is actually is at every point of time is reaching towards death. And in Srimad Bhagavatam it's being described that ayur hariti vai pumsam. So the rising of sun and setting of the sun is actually taking away 1 day of our lifespan, and we are actually nearing to our death. Sorry for that, but that's the fact, isn't it? We are nearing, every day we are nearing to our death, right? So Prabhupada says that this is the beginning of the instructions by the Lord to the living entity who are bewildered by the influence of ignorance. So removal of this ignorance involves the re-establishment of the eternal relationship between the worshipper and the worshipable, and the consequent understanding of the difference between the part and partial living entities and the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So the knowledge, the real knowledge is what? Three things. Understanding who am I. So who am I? I am not this body. I am the spiritual spark. I am the spirit soul. And then second is understanding who is Ishvara, who is Paramatma, who is Supreme Lord. Understanding that. And the third is understanding between what the relationship it has between Jiva and Ishvara. So who am I? That's the first understanding. The second is who God is, second understanding. And the third is what is the relationship this living entity has with Supreme Lord. Right. So that's the three-step understanding, and we get it. When we get there, we understand everything. So what is we are Anu, we are very minute, we are living entities, and Krishna, he is supreme. Lord Bhagwan is supreme, and he is huge, he is Vibhu. That's second. And third is we are his servant. That is the real understanding. So in that attitude, when we serve Lord, that, oh Lord, I am your servant, we see the reciprocation from Lord, and we start falling in love with Lord. Right? That's basically the end of. Uh, I would say, it's unlimited. However, that's one of the stages of bhakti, that be in love with Lord, as if the Vrindavan Vasis, the gopis and the gopas, they and the even Mother Yashoda, Nanda Maharaj, they were all in love with Lord Krishna. Right. So I think we'll take one more verse and stop today here. And then Krishna actually, after establishing this, Krishna started speaking about more on this body and Atma. It goes till verse number 30, and it says this: the body has the nature of change. So the body has the nature of change. The body is going to change at every moment. It's changing at every moment, in fact. And the nature of the soul is that it doesn't change. So the body changes every moment, and the soul never changes. Never changes means even in our previous birth the soul was the same, and even our next birth the soul will remain the same. So that there is no change for the spiritual spark, and there's always a change for the body, right? And that's how this body is called as Asat, and this soul is called as Shat. Right. And 17th verse, Krishna says, Avinashi tu tat vidhi yena sarvam idam tatam vina sorry vinasham abhyashya na kashchit kartum arhati. So that which pervades the entire body, you should know that to be indestructible, and no one is able to destroy that imperishable soul. So we'll conclude here saying that Krishna says that no one will be able to destroy this imperishable soul. And we'll see in Friday that how and what Krishna explains more about how this soul cannot be destroyed by any means. And in this purport, Prabhupada mentioned about the dimension of soul. Right? It says it's in Shvetashvara Upanishad that when you take one tip of the hair uh, and then make it to divide that tip by 100 parts, and then take one part and divide that part again into 100 parts. So basically, take the tip of the hair and divide the tip into 10,000 part, and that small size is the size of soul. So when the upper point of a hair is divided into 100 parts, and again each of such parts is further divided into 100 part, each such part is the measurement of the dimension of the spiritual spark or spirit soul. That's being confirmed in Sudashara Upanishad and also uh, in other Upanishads as well. And basically this is so minute that even we cannot capture by microscope. And however, the same soul, the same small size in spark, actually is maintaining the whole body, isn't it? Isn't it amazing? There's a verse comes actually about I think it's 30th verse, 30th or 31st. That verse name is amazing verse, because that in that verse is been described that some people see soul as amazing. Some people think talk as amazing. Some people even knowing everything, they don't understand anything about the soul. That's also amazing. So, and this soul has is in the body with five kinds of air. That's called as prana, apana, vyana, samana, udana. So the spiritual spark, which cannot be measurable, but still it pervades in the whole body. And just because of that spark, this body is active, this body is functioning, this body can see, can experience the happiness, can experience the distress and other things. This body, right? So that's just because of the spiritual spark. So we have completed chapters verse number 17, and we'll continue from 18 on this Friday. Any questions, any thoughts, please let me know. Okay, so the silence says it's all good.
Silence is good.
Hope it's good. I know it becomes, see, the point is, uh, we can have knowledge, isn't it? We can have knowledge. Uh, However, until that knowledge goes to our heart, and that won't give us experience. So to experience this spiritual knowledge, as recommended by Srila Prabhupada and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we need to take shelter of him. We need to take shelter of Lord himself. So by chanting the holy name, when we call out Lord Krishna, Krishna gives us the realization that yes, something is missing in our path. And I was reading a Prabhupada's book today, and there it says, Prabhupada says that there is no point there's no point of living the life as hogs and dogs, right? And we have been doing this for many lifetime. Until and unless we utilize our human body for self-realization, it's as good as living the life of a hogs and dogs. So the it's very rare human life, and the human life, the rarest, but that can be utilized for the rarest thing, that is getting the service of Lord Sri Krishna, right, and serving him. Okay, so we'll stop today here, and we'll continue tomorrow with our Jagannath Leela, and we have done 3 days, and we'll continue for more 3 days till Friday. Thank you everyone. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki,
Jai.
जय
Srila Prabhupada ki,
Jai.
जय
Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki.
Jai.
जय
Hare Krishna.
Hare
हरे
Krishna.
कृष्णा
Hare Krishna. हो गया? चलो.